The sky over Los Angeles was clear that evening, and the city sparkled with its usual Hollywood glow. The venue, a grand hotel ballroom, was lit up with soft golden lights. A big charity gala was happening there, one that brought together stars from every corner of entertainment and sports. Cameras flashed from every angle, and reporters called out names as people stepped onto the red carpet. Inside, the room was filled with elegant music, clinking glasses, and the soft buzz of excited voices. Big names moved through the crowd: actors, musicians, business leaders. But all eyes were really waiting for the two biggest guests of the night, Tom Brady and LeBron James. LeBron showed up first. He wore a sharp black suit, and he moved through the crowd like he had done it 100 times. He smiled for pictures, shook hands, and laughed with other guests. Everyone wanted a moment with him. People were clearly excited to see the basketball legend in person. LeBron seemed relaxed, calm, and in his element. Then, a few minutes later, Tom Brady arrived. He walked in with that same cool confidence fans had seen on the field for over 2 decades. Tall, fit, and dressed in a sleek navy suit, he made his way through the crowd. People noticed right away. The room seemed to shift slightly. Whispers started as people pointed him out quietly. Here was the man with 7 Super Bowl rings, someone who needed no introduction. Then, something unexpected happened. LeBron and Tom found themselves just a few steps apart. It was a moment that many guests had been waiting for. Everyone expected the two legends to greet each other. Maybe a handshake, a smile, a quick conversation between two giants in sports history. But it didn't happen. Tom walked right by LeBron. No nod, no wave, no handshake, nothing. LeBron turned slightly, as if he noticed Tom. He didn't seem upset, but he did pause for just a second, like he was waiting for something that didn't come. Guests nearby noticed the moment. It was quiet, but it was awkward. Some people looked around to see if anyone else had caught it too. They had. A couple of guests pulled out their phones, hoping to replay the moment later. One short clip was taken from a distance, just enough to show Tom walking past LeBron without saying a word. Some people thought maybe Tom didn't see him. Others weren't so sure. It didn't look like a mistake. It looked deliberate. The rest of the evening went on as planned. Speeches were made. Money was raised. Guests clapped politely and smiled for the cameras. But in the background, the moment between Brady and LeBron kept coming up in quiet conversations. Something about it just fell off. No one knew what it meant yet, but the night had taken a strange turn. The room was buzzing with laughter and conversation, but there was an air of unease that no one could ignore. Guests were still talking about the strange moment when Tom Brady had walked past LeBron James without acknowledging him. For some, it seemed like just a small thing. Maybe a simple mistake or a misunderstanding, but others couldn't stop thinking about it. After all, both men were huge stars in their respective sports. Their paths had crossed at big events before, but there had always been mutual respect. So why had Tom ignored LeBron that night? As the night went on, people couldn't help but keep their eyes on both men, watching to see what would happen next. LeBron was still talking to a few other athletes and friends, laughing and posing for pictures. He seemed unfazed, almost as if nothing strange had happened. But there was a small part of him that looked a bit puzzled. He glanced around the room, his eyes lingering on Brady every now and then, as if trying to figure out if it had been intentional or if he had somehow missed something. Meanwhile, Tom Brady kept to himself, speaking with a few handful owners and business partners. He appeared calm, as if nothing unusual had occurred, but there was a distance between him and everyone else. He didn't make an effort to engage with LeBron or any of the other athletes present, even though they were all in the same room. It was as though he had created an invisible barrier around himself, choosing to remain separate from the excitement that surrounded the basketball legend. Over time, the guests started to feel the tension in the air. It wasn't loud or obvious, but it was there. A subtle shift in energy. Some guests began to whisper to each other, wondering aloud if there was something deeper going on. Had there been a disagreement? Had something happened between the two of them in the past that no one knew about? Nobody knew for sure, but the questions were swirling. In the corner of the room, a small group of fans were watching the two sports icons from a distance. They had seen the clip on social media and were now trying to make sense of it. Maybe it's nothing, one person said, trying to brush off the moment. Brady probably didn't see him. But even as they said the words, they weren't convinced. Something about the way Brady had walked past LeBron felt intentional, like it wasn't just an accident. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere remained charged. The gala continued without any major interruptions, but everyone seemed to have a question in the back of their minds. What had really happened between Brady and LeBron? Neither of them had said anything about the awkward moment, and both of them seemed determined to act like everything was fine. But the silence spoke louder than words. The night ended with people leaving the event, but the tension between the two athletes lingered. Whispers continued as people discussed what they had seen, and the internet soon exploded with speculation. What had really gone down between these two legends? The mystery had only just begun. The silence surrounding the awkward encounter between Tom Brady and LeBron James didn't last long. Within minutes of the moment, someone in the crowd had captured a short video of the two men crossing paths at the event. It was a simple clip, but it showed Brady walking right past LeBron without acknowledging him. The person who shared the video posted it on Twitter with a brief caption. Did Brady just ice out LeBron? The tweet quickly went viral. People all over the internet started commenting. Some thought it was just an innocent mistake, while others were convinced that there was more to the story. Maybe he didn't see him. One person wrote, trying to give Brady the benefit of the doubt, but others weren't so sure. That looked deliberate, someone else tweeted, adding fuel to the growing fire. Soon, the conversation turned into a full-blown debate. Fans of both athletes weighed in. On one side, people defended LeBron, claiming that Tom Brady should have acknowledged the basketball star, especially considering how often the two of them had been in the spotlight over the years. On the other side, some argued that Brady might have been focused on something else and simply didn't notice LeBron. They suggested that the entire situation was blown out of proportion. As the video spread across social media, it was clear that this wasn't just a minor incident. Even though the two athletes hadn't said anything publicly, the internet was buzzing with theories and opinions. Fans began searching for clues that might explain the cold moment. Some pointed to past interviews where both Brady and LeBron had made offhand comments about each other. There were whispers about how Brady had once mentioned he wasn't much of a basketball fan, while LeBron had openly discussed his admiration for Brady's work ethic. These small pieces of the puzzle seemed to add weight to the idea that something might have been brewing between the two athletes for years, something no one had noticed before. The media picked up on the growing story, and sports analysts began discussing the clip during broadcasts. Some of them laughed it off, calling it a small misstep, while others questioned if there was deeper tension between the two legends. It's not just a missed handshake, one commentator said. There's history here, and this might be a sign of something we don't know. As the story spread, people began digging into past events where Brady and LeBron had crossed paths. They remembered a few interviews where the two hadn't always seen eye to eye. But even with all the talk, no one could point to anything concrete. It remained a mystery. All anyone knew for sure was that a small video had captured a strange moment, and it had started a conversation that seemed to grow with every passing hour. The tension was growing, but no one knew what was going to happen next. As the viral video continued to make waves online, fans, reporters, and sports analysts began diving into the past of Tom Brady and LeBron James, trying to uncover the reason behind the awkward moment at the charity event. Although both athletes were often in the spotlight, their paths hadn't crossed as often as many people thought. And when they did, the interactions had always seemed polite but distant. It made some wonder if there was more to their relationship than anyone realized. It wasn't long before a few fans remembered an old interview that LeBron had given several years earlier. In it, he had admitted that he didn't watch much football but had a great deal of respect for Brady's career. LeBron had spoken highly of Brady's consistency and how impressive it was that he kept performing at such a high level year after year. It was clear that LeBron had admiration for the infant legend, even though he wasn't someone who followed the sport closely. On the other side, Brady had once been asked about LeBron's greatness in a press conference. The quarterback had been somewhat indifferent, saying that he respected LeBron's talent but didn't follow basketball in the same way others did. He'd made a passing comment about being more focused on football and less interested in keeping up with other sports. It wasn't a direct insult, but to some, it sounded dismissive, especially considering how much of a global figure LeBron had become. These interviews seemed like small things at the time, but looking back, they now appear to reveal a difference in how the two stars saw each other. LeBron had acknowledged Brady's success with respect, while Brady had expressed a lack of interest in LeBron's world. The interviews weren't confrontational or overly critical, but they hinted at the growing gap between their worlds. Fans began to piece together these little moments, wondering if there had been any underlying tension between the two over the years. Perhaps the moment at the gala wasn't a simple mistake after all. Maybe Brady's indifference was a reflection of something deeper, a difference in how the two viewed each other's success. It wasn't just about football versus basketball. It was about respect, recognition, and how they each valued the other's place in the sports world. As the conversation continued to unfold, some fans wondered if the media had been too quick to assume everything between the two was positive. Perhaps there had always been a subtle distance that people hadn't noticed before. And now, with the viral video, that distance was suddenly much harder to ignore. The mystery of the event remained unsolved, but the story was taking shape. There were still many questions. Was there tension between Brady and LeBron, or was this all a misunderstanding? Had something happened in private that no one knew about? Fans were eager to find out, but for now, the truth remained elusive. As the gala continued, the atmosphere in the grand ballroom remained lively. People were chatting, laughing, and enjoying their time, but the energy around Tom Brady and LeBron James had shifted. Though neither athlete had spoken publicly about the strange moment when Brady had walked past LeBron, the rumor mill kept turning. The internet buzzed with theories, and the media seemed to be constantly covering the story, trying to find answers. But inside the VIP lounge, where the most influential people of the night gathered, things felt quiet. Brady and LeBron found themselves in the same space several times during the evening, but neither seemed eager to make any contact. Both men were surrounded by their own circles of friends and colleagues, but there was a noticeable distance between them. LeBron, always comfortable in these settings, was chatting with a group of athletes, making jokes and laughing. He seemed completely at ease, just as he had earlier when he walked through the crowd. However, every now and then, his eyes would glance toward Brady, as if he were waiting for something. But Brady didn't seem to notice, or at least didn't acknowledge LeBron's presence. Brady, on the other hand, stayed mostly to himself. He was in conversation with a few business partners and NFL owners, discussing plans and projects. It was clear that he was in his comfort zone, focused on work and keeping the conversation professional. But it was strange. Despite being in the same room, Brady didn't seem to make any attempt to cross the room and speak to LeBron, or even acknowledge him from a distance. It wasn't a cold or tense environment in the lounge, but the lack of interaction between the two superstars stood out. It was almost as if both of them had silently agreed to stay in their own separate worlds, avoiding any unnecessary confrontation. But for the people watching, it wasn't easy to ignore. Many in the room had noticed the tension between the two athletes. The gossip was quietly passed along, with people wondering if there was more to the story than anyone knew. Some guests even began to speculate on the relationship between Brady and LeBron. Do you think there's something going on between them? One person whispered to a friend. Another replied, maybe there's been some sort of falling out we don't know about. But no one could say for sure. What was certain was that neither athlete had made an effort to clear the air, and both seemed content to leave things as they were. As the night went on, the two men remained in the same space, but their paths never crossed again. The gala continued without incident, but for everyone watching, it was hard to shake the feeling that something had been left unsaid. The moment in the ballroom that everyone had been talking about earlier still hung in the air. It was clear that this wasn't just a small misunderstanding. It was a moment that would leave people wondering about the true nature of Brady and LeBron's relationship for some time to come. As the story of Tom Brady and LeBron James' silent encounter continued to spread across the internet, more and more people started offering their opinions. It wasn't just fans or reporters anymore. Even body language experts began weighing in on what had happened. They took to television broadcasts, podcasts, and social media platforms, giving their analysis of the video that had captured the awkward moment between the two sports giants. One of the first experts to speak out was a well-known psychologist who had appeared on several popular sports networks. She was quick to point out the body language of both athletes during the brief exchange. When you look at Brady's posture, there's a clear signal of avoidance, she explained. His body is angled away from LeBron as he walks past, and there's no attempt at eye contact. This suggests that he was deliberately choosing not to engage. Fans who were following the story closely listened to every word of the analysis. Many had already formed their own opinions, but now they had an expert's perspective to back up their suspicions. Some agreed with the expert, feeling that Brady's actions were too intentional to be ignored. Others remained unsure, believing that perhaps Brady was simply focused on something else in the moment. The body language expert didn't stop there. She also examined LeBron's reaction, pointing out that although he didn't immediately show anger or frustration, his slight pause suggested that he had been expecting some form of acknowledgement from Brady. You can see him hesitate for a brief second, she noted. It's almost like he's waiting for Brady to recognize him, but when that doesn't happen, he moves on, as if brushing it off. This analysis sparked even more discussion online. Some fans argued that LeBron's pause showed disappointment, while others believed he was simply confused. The fact that he didn't react aggressively, either through body language or words, led many to wonder if there was a deeper, unspoken understanding between the two men. Perhaps it wasn't as dramatic as some people were making it out to be, but there was clearly something that had caused the awkwardness. Other sports analysts chimed in, some offering more neutral perspectives. They suggested that what had happened wasn't necessarily a sign of tension or conflict, but rather an odd, isolated moment. Sometimes in large social settings like this, people just don't cross paths as naturally as you might expect, one analyst said. Brady could have been distracted, and LeBron might not have been upset. We might be reading too much into a single interaction. The debate continued to grow, but the video's popularity showed no signs of slowing down. Fans, experts, and analysts alike had dissected every second of the brief interaction, trying to understand what it meant for the two superstars. Whether it was a mistake, a deliberate snub, or simply a strange coincidence, no one could say for sure. All that was clear was that the tension in the room that night had captured the attention of the world. And as the story continued to unfold, one question lingered in everyone's mind. What, if anything, would Tom Brady and LeBron James say about it? The story of the awkward moment between Tom Brady and LeBron James had now reached a level of public attention neither athlete had expected. Social media continued to buzz with theories, and every major news outlet had picked up the story. People everywhere were talking about the video, and the question on everyone's mind was whether or not there was real tension between the two sports legends. As the buzz grew, both Brady and LeBron remained mostly silent. Neither of them had commented directly on what had happened at the gala, and that only fueled the speculation. Fans, reporters, and analysts were eager to hear from the athletes themselves. What did they think about the viral video? Was there any truth to the rumors of a feud between them? But neither man seemed in a hurry to clear the air. A few days after the event, Brady took to his social media accounts, posting a picture of himself at another charity event. The caption was lighthearted, and he seemed to be in a great mood. He didn't mention the gala or the controversy at all. Fans immediately took this as a sign that Brady was choosing to ignore the whole situation. Some appreciated his choice to move on, while others wished he had addressed the matter more directly. Meanwhile, LeBron posted a series of motivational messages on his own social media. He shared photos from his latest basketball games and thanked his fans for their support. As with Brady, there was no direct mention of the gala or the awkward moment with Brady. Some saw this as LeBron's way of taking the high road, not allowing the incident to get under his skin. The silence from both sides made the situation even more intriguing. While neither athlete had given any clear explanation for what had happened, their fans weren't about to let it go. More and more theories continued to spread online. Some speculated that perhaps Brady and LeBron had a disagreement that the public wasn't aware of. Others suggested that it was a simple case of two high-profile athletes not crossing paths in the right way at an event. As the story developed, sports journalists started to dig into other possible clues. They pulled up old interviews, social media posts, and past interactions between Brady and LeBron, looking for any signs that there had been a deeper issue between them. But the more they looked, the more it seemed like there was no clear reason for the awkward moment at the gala. Aside from the occasional offhand remark in interviews, there was nothing substantial to suggest any long-term tension between the two. The public's reaction was mixed. Some fans were disappointed that neither Brady nor LeBron had addressed the situation head-on, while others felt it wasn't necessary. Maybe, they argued, it was just an awkward moment at a busy event that didn't need any further explanation. With no answers from the athletes themselves, the mystery of the silent encounter continued to swirl around, leaving fans wondering if they would ever get a real answer about what happened that night. Weeks passed, and the viral moment between Tom Brady and LeBron James started to fade from the headlines. People moved on to the next big story, but the question remained: what had really happened at that gala? Had it been a simple mistake, or was there something more beneath the surface? Despite the silence from both athletes, the curiosity of fans still lingered. Then, out of nowhere, something unexpected happened. Brady and LeBron were scheduled to appear together at a charity event, one that was meant to raise money for youth sports programs. It was the first time they would share a stage since the gala, and the media immediately seized on the opportunity. The questions about their strange interaction were certain to come up, and everyone was eager to see how they would handle the situation. On the day of the event, both athletes showed up, looking professional and ready to contribute to the cause. They gave speeches about the importance of helping young athletes and shared their own experiences of growing up in the world of sports. The event was successful, with plenty of positive moments, but throughout the evening, the tension between the two athletes was palpable. During the first part of the event, Brady and LeBron kept to their separate corners, occasionally making polite gestures toward each other, but never fully engaging. Their body language was cautious, like two people who had once been in close proximity, but now found themselves hesitant. But as the event wore on, something changed. Toward the end of the evening, both athletes found themselves on stage at the same time, standing side by side. The room fell silent as the two icons stood together, facing the crowd. It was a rare moment, and everyone in the room seemed to hold their breath, wondering if this would be the moment they would finally address the awkwardness from the gala. Brady was the first to speak. He turned toward LeBron and offered a friendly smile before saying, "You know, LeBron, we've both been in this game long enough to know how important respect is. I think we've always had that for each other." LeBron, who had been listening carefully, nodded in agreement. "Absolutely," he replied. "We may come from different worlds, but we both know what it means to work hard and stay focused on what matters." The crowd, which had been tense just moments before, seemed to relax at the exchange. For the first time, there was a sense of understanding between the two athletes. The awkwardness from the gala seemed to evaporate, replaced with a shared acknowledgement of each other's achievements. It wasn't an elaborate apology, but it didn't need to be. In that simple exchange, Both men had cleared the air without making a big deal out of it. After the event, the media ran with the story, highlighting the unexpected moment of unity between the two stars. While it wasn't the explosive confrontation that some had hoped for, it was a resolution in its own quiet way. The viral video had sparked a conversation that brought the two men closer in the public eye, even if they hadn't needed to say much to make it happen. And so, the mystery of the silent encounter was laid to rest, with both athletes continuing to focus on their careers and the work they were doing off the field and court. The public, having witnessed their quiet resolution, could finally move on, leaving the story of Brady and LeBron's awkward moment behind.